The South African Digital Marketing Podcast is made in collaboration with Sean Lutz. Coming up in this episode of the South African Digital Marketing Podcast.
I want to be able to fully understand something so I can leverage it properly.
I mean, there's a whole further conversation about managing agencies and choosing the right agencies.
You know, people don't really understand events is not just the girl with the samosas on the tray. We need to be clever about how we do these things. So leveraging our partners, so our tech partners is really important.
You know what? A phone call directly to this person will be much better than a targeted ad right now.
That is key to success, is driving your own bus, being proactive, going out, understanding stuff.
Welcome to Season 3 of the South African Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Terence Mentor, and I'm a digital marketer who's realized that since this industry is constantly changing, we need to be constantly learning. And the best way to learn all of the things is to talk to the people who are doing all of the things. In Season 3, I'm talking to CMOs, heads of marketing, and other leaders of marketing people about the realities of their positions. In this episode, I chatted to Tracey-Lee Zürcher-Campbell, who's head of marketing at Payflex. She also spends time training up and working with new up-and-coming marketers, and also speaks at conferences around the country. So how does she do all of that while still leading an agile marketing team in a rapidly growing business? Well, that's what we get into in this episode. By the way, you can follow Tracey-Lee on LinkedIn. I'll put a link to her profile in the show notes, but let's get into it. Here's Tracey-Lee.
Thanks, Terence. I'm Tracey-Lee Zürcher-Campbell, the longest name in the world. I'm the head of marketing at Payflex, and I guess that's what I do. I head up marketing. I have a team that I work with, and we work very closely with our agencies, and we do B2B and B2C marketing. So it's a lot of fun, lots to keep us busy.
So let's start with figuring out how you got into this current position. What happened in your career to get you here? And was there a moment when you were like, do you know what? I should be head of marketing somewhere. Was it a particular moment in time where you realized that this is something you wanted to do? Tell us about how you got here.
So I think when I don't know if people should be able to make huge life choices at 18 years old, So I went to university and I kind of wanted to do everything. I think by nature, I'm quite a curious person. So I wanted to do this major and that major. And then I went back after varsity and I did another major and I did all sorts of different things. And it all kind of culminated into a lot about behaviors and communication. So, I did my undergrad in English Lit and media writing. Postgrad, I did marketing management. I also did a postgrad in English. I went back and did psychology undergrad courses so that I could perhaps one day pursue something in that. So a lot of it has to do with kind of drivers and motivators for why people do what they do, and how, brands or people or anybody can communicate with people to influence their decisions. So I think through, the beginning of my career, that was an obvious interest. But in terms of getting into marketing, I realized after university, I wanted to go into marketing, but I was so desperate to just get a job. I think, when you've got a student loan, you're just dying to get into the workplace. So I found myself in a sales position for a publication. And then I moved in the same company, I moved into event production. So, people don't really understand events is not just the girl with the samosas on the tray. There's actually a heck of a lot of market research, relationship building, logistics, budgeting and finance involved in event production. But it was still not in marketing, even though producers were responsible for content creation, and the delivery of content to an audience or a market. It was still not marketing in its purest form. It was a kind of section of what, event production is a part of marketing. But then I think, we would often look at lists of people, lists of potential delegates, lists of sponsors, and try and segment them and, make the product really desirable for them to come. And as a result of that, I became quite interested in CRM and threw myself fully into CRM and digital automation, and ended up, I suppose, becoming a little bit of an SME or a subject matter expert in CRM. And it was quite new at the time. I mean, I'm talking maybe 17, 18 years ago. So, CRM and digital marketing automation was quite fresh. So I, started looking at that, and that's how I got I headed up a project of where we set up a brand new marketing automation system as a plug-in to our existing CRM. And that was kind of my launch into the digital space. And then I started working, I got a new job at a different company, completely heading up digital marketing automation. And then that kind of like shifted into more of brand work, because we were obviously deploying messages through our automation system. And I was largely responsible for the messaging and the look and feel and all of those. So that role shifted into kind of a brand management position. And as a result, I kind of, got my fingers stuck into every part of marketing along my 18-year journey, doing digital, doing brand, doing events and activations and, all sorts of things for a part, which is kind of, now I kind of oversee it all, which is great. Anyway, long story short, that's how I got here.
The thread that I see through that career that you've just kind of very quick, I mean, I'm sure we can talk about your career for hours, but the thread that I'm seeing there is the same thread that I see with a lot of marketing leaders, which is this curiosity about how the world works. So when you have a new tool like a CRM, management coming in, suddenly, I'm curious about that. I want to learn more. And then suddenly you become the person who knows all about the new tool. Is that the kind of way you maybe see your career as well? Just like this idea of wanting to understand maybe not even just how the world works, but specifically how people work?
Yeah, definitely. I think it also has a lot to do with, I suppose, control. I think there's so much, in the world of marketing that can be leveraged, and that's actually quite tricky to understand. So you might be in a relationship with a business that does something that has great results, but if you don't understand how they got there, how they did it, if they're lying to you, if it's actually effective or not, are you getting the return? It's important that you really understand this stuff, so you're not going to be hoodwinked by all the millions of suppliers out there. So I think that's kind of, I want to be able to fully understand something so I can leverage it properly. And then when I get it, I'm like, cool, I can use this and then move on to the next thing. But definitely, trying to, there is so much to know, and it's also interesting. It's fascinating because it's what makes you progress, And I was when I was preparing for this, I thought back to, we had and my team hears this from me all the time. They must be nauseated by it. But I used to work with a lady, her name was Cheryl. She was from the UK, and she would come down once or twice a year to do her, HR show. And she would always say, drive your own bus. Like, vroom, vroom, drive your own bus. And we were like, okay, I think a lot of people would, they wouldn't take too much notice of it. But I really think that that's the only thing. Like, that is key to success, is driving your own bus, being proactive, going out, understanding stuff. Because if you're the only person who understood it, and nobody else does, of course you're going to become the expert in it, which is amazing, It's just adding feathers to your cap, and adding kind of weapons to your arsenal, so that you can be more productive.
Well, Cheryl, if you're out there, your impact has been felt even in 2025, and in your words being heard in multiple marketing teams. I wonder if she ever thought that would be happening.
I'll have to find her and send her this podcast.
Yeah. Yes, a little shout out to Cheryl.
Yeah,
it is interesting, the idea of knowing enough to maybe not necessarily be an expert at that particular thing, but I have quite found a lot of pride in being able to know enough just to ask the right question to the right person. I found that has been super effective. And again, having that like natural curiosity of, okay, what is the fundamentals of this thing, and how do I utilize it in some way, shape, or form? And even knowing who to ask can be a real skill just in and of itself.
Really.
I would love to move on to your team, because you mentioned them. Actually, you mentioned them at the very beginning, and you mentioned them right now in your second answer too. So I'm guessing your team is very important to you.
Yes.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about your team at Payflex? Who are they? Kind of what specializations do you have in that team? Really, how does marketing get done?
So we actually at Payflex, we run quite a tight ship. So we like to keep things lean and agile. So as a permanent team, there are 5 members in the marketing team, only 5. So we have a digital marketing manager, looks after all the digital channels and performance of our assets across all the channels. We have a brand manager that looks after all customer and merchant facing. So we obviously have this B2B arm and a B2C arm. So all customer and merchant facing kind of materials and anything that where the brand shows up in life. We have a partnerships marketing manager. So she's really focused on, obviously we have almost 4,000 merchants that use Payflex. So, we want to obviously leverage them. Then they want to leverage us. So we have somebody dedicated to servicing that function. And then we have somebody who's in charge of design and studio internally. But we work incredibly closely with our creative agency. So the agency that we work with is Anomaly. They have an amazing team of kind of designers, paid media experts, the whole work. So we work very, very closely with them. And then we have another agency that we work closely with, which is Algorithm. They do all of our SEO, paid media, PMAX, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how we work. We'd rather keep the team light and tight. And we enlist the services of subject matter experts and consultants to kind of guide us through a process that we might not ordinarily do alone. But in terms of tactical execution, we would try and manage that as much in-house as possible.
I mean, there's a whole further conversation about managing agencies and choosing the right agencies, developing that relationship, when to know when to switch agencies, even because that's a whole other cost, not just in money, but in time as well to rebuild. I think that's a whole other conversation. Look out for that for the next season, I think.
Yeah.
in the next season 4 of the podcast. One of the things I found quite interesting is that you mentioned that you are doing both B2B and B2C.
Yeah.
And even though, marketing is marketing, there is differences between that B2B and B2C. And in your small team, how are you able to kind of do that code switch? Is that a challenge?
Yeah, I find it, I must be honest, it is, having come from originally a B2B background and then having moved into a B2C role, like in the last, I'd say 10 years, it definitely is, you have to wear different hats. It's a totally different way of dealing with the target audience that, whether it's B2B or B2C. So I think we're quite lucky in that we have a team of account managers. They don't sit in marketing, but they are, we work very closely with the account management team. So they are essentially responsible for merchant retention and ensuring that we deliver to the merchants what we say we are. And then the marketing team works very closely with the account managers to make sure that, in a B2B environment, relationship is everything. Whereas in B2C, it's a lot more brand driven. So, we have to use whatever tools we have at our disposal to ensure that we are showing up in the best way possible to the target audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a digital marketer, and even as a digital marketer in a B2B space, I'm finding more and more saying things along the lines of, you know what, a phone call directly to this person will be much better than a targeted ad right now.
Yeah.
Having to do that switch sometimes hurts my soul, because I want to say that the answer is always online, that there's always a digital strategy that'll work. But, this is one of the things that we were both at the marketing cafe a few weeks ago, and a lot of the conversations that came out of that was there's just no replacing that eye to eye, the handshake, the conversation, and getting to know the real person.
But there's a lot of, additional, I suppose, elements that can support that. So how do you, as a B2B marketer, support a sale that's happening in flesh and blood? What can you give somebody who is managing that relationship to make them look even more professional and prepared? So, that the trust is so important. So, everything that goes along with just the person makes the brand look very credible and very trustworthy. The messages that are delivered in a B2B environment, people are making decisions with their business hat on. Ultimately, we're all chasing our own personal goals. So, if somebody is working in B2B sales, they're using their B2B sales hat on when they're making decisions so that they look good at the end of the day, because they, as individuals, they want to look great. They want to make their targets. So, it's just trying to appeal to what it is that your target audience member is trying to achieve in that moment, and how marketing can support that.
And I suppose that's not too far away from B2C. It's the same thing. There's a
Yeah,
need that needs to be fulfilled. And the moment we can
exactly.
understand that, then we can tailor our messages to that. Are
100%.
there other challenges? Your team is, I want to say small, but I think in the South African context, most marketing heads of marketing that I talk to, between 5 and 10, that seems to be the manageable size of most in-house
Yeah.
teams. But with the personnel that you have,
Mm.
what other challenges do you maybe face as a head of marketing?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that we, I don't want to say struggle with, but that we're finding challenging at the moment is Payflex has experienced exponential growth quite recently. So since we launched our Pay in 3 product about a year ago, I mean, our growth has been tremendous. So trying to keep up and scale our efforts with the same resources, the same budget, that kind of thing, that's been something that we're having to kind of creatively navigate. So, to put it politically correctly, I think that we need to be clever about how we do these things. So, leveraging our partners, so our tech partners is really important in the sense, and really understanding and exploring. I know everybody's saying it, AI, but it's so true. We have to, we can't duplicate ourselves, and to bring on new team members and train them up and get them market ready. It is incredibly resource intensive, and we need to use our resources wisely. So leveraging partners in tech is something that we're really trying to do at the moment. I also think, the competitive landscape is, it's, it's good. It's going well. There's a lot of healthy competition out there, market share, share of voice, all of those things. There's a lot going on. And I think, the race is on. So we definitely need to, with that, you want to make sure that you're at the forefront of everything, and you want to be doing everything, but you have to be able to be selective about what you proceed with and what you don't. So we chatted about this at Marketing Cafe, but I strongly believe you can't boil the ocean, but you have to select the elements that are going to have the most impact. So it's, I think a challenge is trying to make sure that you make your decisions wisely before you proceed, and that you choose what to go ahead with and what to forego. And I think as a result of this, the third challenge is that because we're trying to do so much, we're not really finding the time to learn and explore. So, I think it's really important that we are that people spend their time doing a little bit of research on new tech, on new products, and that sort of thing. But we're struggling to find the time to do that. I mean, we used to talk about this. This like a age-old adage of the professor who would come to work and he would sit reading the newspaper for 2 hours, and everybody was like, "What's this guy doing?" He just rolls into work, sits on the couch with a coffee, and reads the newspaper for 2 hours. Like, what kind of guy is this getting paid to do that? And he would, when asked about it, he would say, "This is my work. It is my work to ensure that I know everything." And I always think back on that, and that's what I would love us to have, is just enough time to relax and read and get to know what's happening out there, so that we don't miss the boat.
It does feel like the hamster wheel has to, you got to keep feeding it. You got to keep
Yep.
going. The other thing on that is I've found something that I keep forgetting to do, but I'm trying to do more and more, is take a few moments, twice a year, once a year even, just to look back and see what you've also done. I think part of
Yeah.
the merry-go-round of all the marketing stuff we do, sometimes we, things go out and we're
Yeah.
doing whole campaigns and we're learning new things, and it can sometimes
Yeah.
be a little bit disheartening because you see the ocean in front of you that is waiting to be boiled, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Exactly.
And it's sometimes great to look back and go, wait a second, I filled up a pool which didn't exist before. That's pretty
Yeah.
decent.
Exactly. And I think all those little things matter. We have these always on campaigns that, it's like little bits of creative here and there that are going out, and they happen every second or third day. And it's exactly as you say, it feels like a hamster wheel. You're just churning out content. At the end of the day, you're like, wow, I've actually done like 300 pieces of content that's hit our market. That's amazing. I totally agree with that. I'm quite rigid about retros and doing quarterly reviews. I always, I set the time time with my CEO, and he knows it's coming, and I always want to kind of show off what marketing has done. PR is 50% of the job. And then always I'm quite rigid about, the planning. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So I always make sure that we have our annual and biannual plan ready, so that we know where we're going, the North Stars.
Yeah, having that to look towards. It's interesting that you talk about, sitting down with your CEO to really talk through what marketing has done and is going to do, hopefully, all things being equal. Do you find that has been well received from the rest of the business? Do you spend a lot of time, not just with your CEO, but making the rest of the business know what marketing is doing?
Yeah, I think, we're still quite a young business. So Payflex is only 8 years old. And it really started from the ground up. So we have such an interesting mix of individuals and talents and team members that have really interesting and varying backgrounds. So we try and we do have a company town hall, and we always include the marketing initiatives in the town hall, and we often only have like 5 or 10 minutes to get the point across, which sometimes can just goes over the head of a lot of people, especially if they don't have any expertise in marketing. But we try and make it digestible and snackable so that it feels cool. And the main thing I want to achieve with this is to show the impact to the business. So I'll always lead with a kind of a business case, what the business case was, what was achieved, and actually the bottom line impact that it has on the business, so people can really see that turning and like designing. People think, oh, I'm just designing all these pictures and whatever, and at the end of the day, but they really do have a material impact on the business. So I agree that it is something that I think more departments should be doing. Some stuff, I don't understand what goes on in engineering, but it is amazing to watch it. They whip out the code, and I have no idea what it is, but the way they explain it, it's really great. Then I get to understand what product development they're doing so that I can leverage that in my own world. And I love that. And I don't think we necessarily do enough of it. But yeah, me being the kind of the PR pro in the business, I would try and get us all together in a room at least quarterly to have those conversations.
So you're doing feedback sessions, you're doing strategy sessions, you're obviously doing the actual work, you're leading a team, leading people. I've been told has its own collection of workloads that you have to do, both like practical admin, but just the human interactions take energy. You also have your own life to live. With all of that, you're also taking on speaking engagements. This is where we met face to face a few weeks ago. I know you're speaking very soon as well. How is that? First of all, where do you find the time and the energy? And secondly, is that an important part of the work you do, maybe for your career? Why do you find yourself in these spaces?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I think, a few years ago, I suppose just before COVID, I was kind of plodding along through my life. And I made a decision just after COVID, actually, to pursue an MBA. And I'd been thinking about this for years. There's you've heard this before, there's two schools of thought. There's the people that believe in the University of Life and the people that believe in the MBAs. And, never the twain shall meet. So, if you do your research, a lot of people, you try and decide, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? For me, it was absolutely critical to my career development. I think it put me on more of a proverbial stage, not necessarily a physical stage. And it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of people. So as a result of that, I kind of managed to build a little bit of profile, and that grew this head of steam, and it's amazing. And now I am in a position where I am at these events, and I can meet absolutely incredible marketers. And that has been hugely, hugely beneficial for my career as well, because everybody that I meet, I want to learn from them. I want to understand, what they did wrong, what they did right, what was great. And it's so amazing to have this kind of community of marketing people that can share these stories, and that can give you, sometimes they can give you amazing advice. Sometimes they can give you amazing warnings. And it's great to have this kind of community of people who support each other and are great soundboards for each other. So I would say it was a little bit of an animal of its own, and I just decided not to ever say no. And every time I said yes, I was like, cool, the rest will follow. Let me just do this. And yeah, it's been, I would say, 2 years or so that I've been doing these speaking occasions and events, and I love it more and more every time because it's richer. It's a richer experience every time because I either will meet people I've met before and they'll introduce me to other people. I'll meet kind of brand new people, which for me that's where the benefit comes in.
And I guess marketers, we should be like humanists almost, right? We should want to be engaging with people. It should be part of our maybe the toolbox that we have is that we should be networkers. And
100%.
I do think though that a lot of us, me included, that's something that we spoke about, just the shyness and the introverts, like we want to do good work and we want to do it quietly in our corner. But like you say, there is such value in, look, you don't have to be on a stage, you don't have to be on a podcast, but it is valuable to have people you talk to.
Yeah.
Even just to sympathize with the works you're doing if you're going through struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a huge amount. I've learned such a huge amount, and also like to face your fears a little bit. Standing there's imposter syndrome that creeps in. Sometimes, especially in the world of marketing, they say marketing is an art and a science, and it really is. So, you stand up on a stage and you talk about the things that you've done and what you firmly believe in, and a lot of people will criticize you for that. A lot of people don't necessarily agree with what you have to say, and it's great to be able to open the dialogue afterwards and chat about it and debate about it. But it isn't, this is not a tax return. I suppose there's also an art to a tax return, but like it's not as scientific as that. So, there's a lot to discuss and a lot to talk about. And standing on a stage and defending your opinion and defending why you made certain choices, it's really facing a fear. So it's a great way to kind of like, crack through the creme brulee shell and move forward with the good stuff.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, I need help with even figuring out how to get started or why I would do this, you can chat to Tracey on LinkedIn. She's very responsive.
I guess so.
I know that's how I managed to get her on this podcast. I don't want to keep you for way too long, but just thinking about your experience now with leading a team and being a head of marketing, I often talk to people about, like we've spoken about the challenges, the difficulties, things that you've had to overcome, but have there been any things that you just really unexpectedly enjoyed about your current position where you didn't really realize that this would be, I use the word fun very loosely, but are there any of those unexpected, enjoyable things?
Yeah, totally. So I think so. I actually, in my undergrad, one of my majors was drama, and then while I was studying, I was like, oh, this is like, I don't know if this world is for me. It's a little bit, it's quite cutthroat and competitive, So I didn't really want to pursue a career in, being a professional on stage necessarily. But I think that the ability to express and be creative on a stage with an audience that's a lot of fun, actually, especially when you can get the audience engaged and excited about what you're saying. It's really rewarding and fulfilling. I think that I've found myself weirdly interested in teaching. So I didn't, this is the strangest thing. So I'm 40 years old at the moment, and something happened in the last 5 years where I became old. I don't know. It was
it's
the weird.
Curse. We're all cursed with this.
I have no idea how this happened. Like, I always thought I was young and cool and that I would be young and cool forever. In fact, it never occurred to me that at some point I was going to become old. So now, we have a totally different generation of people that have entered the workspace, i.e. like the Gen Zs, and they're super enthusiastic and willing to, learn and engage. And I find myself in this weird position of kind of like teaching theory, and I quite like it. It's nice when people are like, oh, this is interesting what your 20 years of old person's experience has taught you. So yeah, I found that was, it's weirdly fun, even though I don't like the fact that it's because I'm old. And we've discussed this as well. I really love like knowledge and experience sharing. So I find that kind of personal engagement with people, whether they are brand new to the industry, whether they've been doing it for 20 years longer than I have, or whether they're in the same position as me. I love that. I find it thrilling to hear how people are doing what they're doing and what's working and what isn't. I love it.
I must say, I don't think there's anything better than a millennial teacher. I think we're the perfect demographic to teach the next generation, where we remember what it was like to be taught by the boomers, and we don't want to go down the same
I'm like,
same road.
No, we're going to be like the boomers.
There is something. I also just turned 40, and I think there is something about suddenly you've become the maturer person in the room with the experience, and suddenly people are looking to you
like that.
and you have to act like you know what you're doing, and then you realize, oh wait, I actually do know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a very strange kind of switch over where maybe the imposter syndrome is fading a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit more confident. Yeah, a little bit.
Exactly.
Not to be replaced by cockiness or arrogance. Just like, I know what I'm about now.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that you've also had that experience in all of your 40 years.
40 years, 41 in 2 days.
Oh yes.
Officially over the hill.
It's like, are we planning a retirement party at some point? Is that the next step?
I mean, I know I tried to hide the gray hair, but I didn't know there was so.
I mean, I'm not even trying anymore. I've just given up with that altogether. Just with someone who maybe is listening and thinking, I one day want to be head of marketing for Payflex. Tracy has now, moved on to CMO of Payflex or something else, but I want to be in the seat that Tracy is in. What is a couple of pieces of advice, even one big piece of advice you would give to that person who wants to get to where you are?
100%. So I think number one for me is attitude is everything, and anything else can be taught. So I don't think that people should limit themselves based on what they know or what they feel confident talking about. You can learn anything. It's more just putting yourself out there, driving your own bus, as Cheryl would say, and being proactive. I think it's very easy. And I think I was in this position for quite a long time, where I went to work every day and my work was just the work that was given to me. Whereas now I 100% make my own work. I don't take instruction, I make instruction. And I think that's a key difference to becoming a marketing leader versus simply just being a marketer, is where can you find impact points and how can you affect them yourself and be proactive in driving initiatives that that can make a real difference. And my team will fight me on this, but I think another thing that's really important is the devil being in the detail. I naturally am not a very detail orientated person, but it's something I became very disciplined about, is really being critical and detail orientated in my work, because the more you push yourself to look for errors, look for mistakes, look for how to improve things, that becomes then a natural set pathway in your brain if you're disciplined about making that happen. So you become, it makes you much quicker at doing your work, so you can free up time to do other things that are more impactful if you can find the detail without too much effort. But that takes a lot of training and work. So I would say, I think be disciplined in your approach to the work that you do, and look for the detail. So and I think that'll change the path of your career.
A big thank you to Tracey-Lee for her time and her insights. If you want more conversations just like this one, you can subscribe to the South African Digital Marketing Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'll put a link to all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening. This was the SA Digital Marketing Podcast.